Well, BBC bias, that's hardly news, is it? I mean, out of all their biases, their pro-abortion bias is one of the most severe. They're absolutely pro-killing unborn children. And not just that, they are actually anti-pro-life people. They try and demonize them, present them as the nasty, unpleasant type of people. So I'm just going to look in this video at a short clip from a Radio 4 report. It's not just one-sided. The whole presentation is engineered to ram home its point. So I'm going to take it apart piece by piece, just so you can see the way it's designed to operate, the way it's designed to influence public opinion. And it includes one absolutely clear-cut, downright lie as well, which I'll explain in a couple of minutes. So here we go.
It could now be just a matter of days before the United States Supreme Court is set to overrule the law that made abortion a constitutional right. If and when it does, at least 12 states have trigger laws which would almost immediately ban the procedure across much of the South and cut off access in nearly half of the country. Sophie Long now reports from the Mississippi Delta, where critics say the impact of a ruling would be most acutely felt.
Impact most acutely felt. In other words, taking it for granted that there's going to be a negative impact, they're looking at the place where the problems caused are going to be the most severe.
No! Here, play with the cars. I know.
Titan, Mega and Seven are happy, healthy, boisterous little boys who, like normal brothers, play together and squabble over toys.
Oh! Sorry, Seven.
Their young mother, Amanda, loves them and looks after them the best she can. But this was not the life she'd hoped for.
So meet the victim of the story. That's Amanda, this mum, who's basically saying that she wishes her sons didn't exist. The BBC must have looked pretty hard to find a mum who would speak like that of her own sons. I mean, it is absolutely appalling to talk that way. I hope these sons, when they're grown up, I hope they don't watch this video and hear the way their mum is talking about them, saying basically, you know, she wished they were dead, wish they didn't exist. But that's quite an important distinction, actually. It's not that she wishes they had never existed. That might be that she wished she'd used contraception or hadn't had sex or whatever. She's actually wishing she'd had an abortion, so she's wishing that they were dead. So her complaint, Amanda's complaint, is that she wasn't allowed to kill her sons, and she's pretty angry about it.
She was a struggling single mum, still breastfeeding a baby, having just escaped an abusive partner when she found out she was pregnant by him again.
Knew immediately I did not want to or intend to be pregnant, just had no interest in being pregnant because of the struggles that I had just gone through already. I didn't have the mental, emotional capacity or the economic support that I needed to be raising 2 kids at the time.
I think it's pretty good advice to not have sex with a man you don't want to have children with. I mean, was this a case of rape? I suspect not, because if it was, she'd have actually said that. So maybe, you know, she made a bad decision in terms of partner. We're not sure about the full story. But certainly the situation she's found herself in had its challenges. We can sympathise that, and we can see that she needs help and support potentially in that situation. But it is sound advice to not do the baby making thing when you absolutely do not want to make a baby. And that's a very important message. What's coming through here is it's all his fault. Well, maybe partly it was. Maybe he was a really unpleasant character. Maybe it was partly his fault. But you have to think this probably wasn't the whole story. She must bear some responsibility herself.
Amanda went to a crisis pregnancy centre, or CPC. She said they tricked her into thinking they'd help her to get an abortion, but she says they just delayed things until it was too late.
Eventually I found out that I had timed out. So I knew then my only other option is to go somewhere else, another state, but I didn't have any transportation. I didn't have any funds. So I left there furious, upset, sad.
Amanda had no choice but to have the baby here in the Mississippi Delta, the poorest region of the poorest state.
So she's complaining that it timed out. She could have gone for an abortion. She's an adult. She should know the laws in the state that she lives in, and she should make her own decision. This idea that she was tricked in some sort of sinister plot, because what this crisis pregnancy centre did was focus on preparing for the baby, and the BBC thinks that's classed as, you know, they're happy that to be presented as she was tricked. I mean, she couldn't get an abortion because it's too late, and she's therefore angry that her sons exist. Then she's saying, you know, having a baby in a poor area, that's irresponsible. I mean, is it irresponsible to have a baby in the East End of Glasgow? I mean, are people in those areas, are they better off dead than poor? Is that really what she believes? And if we apply these standards all over the world, if you're looking at like the Mississippi Basin, probably half the countries in the world or more are generally in more difficult situations than that. So is she saying no babies in all those places? So whose fault is it that Amanda's ended up with these happy sons that we heard playing at the beginning? Well, it's partly the man's fault, and we now know it's also partly the Crisis Pregnancy Centre fault.
Driving around the Delta, you can see just how rural it is. The uniformed rows of crops of the rich farmland that extends further than the eye can see ripple by. Yet ironically, many who live here don't have easy access to fresh food or grocery stores. The region has the lowest number of doctors per capita anywhere in America. And a lack of basic transportation, nutrition and access to the healthcare that does exist puts many pregnant people in the highest risk categories.
At the beginning there, we get the pregnant people, of course, from the BBC, as usual. So no access to grocery stores. I mean, really? Do you not get deliveries? I mean, how do people manage to live there? I mean, maybe move somewhere else? I mean, it's like saying, we shouldn't have any babies born in the Highlands of Scotland. It's too many miles to the nearest Tesco. High risk relative to what? I mean, what we're talking here is maybe like the difference between being, say, in Poland, in Germany, compared to the quality of medical support, the wealth, etc. But the message here is in some cases it's irresponsible to allow children to be born. That's the big moral issue. The moral issue of killing unborn children doesn't enter into the BBC's account at all, doesn't even get a mention. The moral issue is whether or not it's irresponsible to allow children to be born into less than ideal circumstances.
This is our clinic.
Thanks so much.
Of course.
At the Delta Health Centre in Mount Bayou, its only obstetrician, Dr. Nina Raghunathan, tells me banning abortion will only exacerbate an already desperate situation.
The banning of abortion will increase maternal morbidity and mortality. And I think what is sometimes missing in the general public discussion of abortion is that abortion is a necessary part of reproductive care. Blindly banning abortion really puts women's lives at risk.
Right, we now meet Saint number 2. Amanda is Saint number 1. We now meet Saint number 2. She talks about blindly banning abortion. So the people who want to stop abortion, in some way, they're not seeing the bigger picture, whereas she is obviously seeing the whole situation clearly. I don't think. Saying women will die. I mean, evidence, you hear this said again and again. I mean, is it true? If you look at countries where abortion is banned, does the number of women die increase? And generally the answer is no. But she's talking as though abortion is a well-established treatment for mental health problems, but it's not. And we've got the usual line here, essential healthcare. Who says? I went on a BBC programme, it's years and years ago now. I was just in the audience, put my hand up, they were talking about abortion. And I said, who says abortion is healthcare? By what definition of healthcare can you include abortion? And I asked Patrick Harvey, he was on the panel, and he replied by saying, the United Nations definition of healthcare. And he was absolutely right. That is the way the United Nations defines healthcare. Just happens to be the United Nations are wrong on the issue.
An hour and a world away in Greenwood, the regular Sunday church service is taking place. Dr. Terry McMillan, an obstetrician who does not believe in abortion, is singing in the choir.
Right, so we then get the music from the church, and this is described as a world away. Now, the impression, what you're supposed to think, the impression given is that we're a world away from the gritty reality of the previous 2 saints we've been hearing from, and we're now going to religion. What a contrast. We're going from people who are concerned to people who are just religious. So let's hear what the first villain has got to say. It says he does not believe in abortion. Now, doesn't believe in abortion. Now, at face value, that's just a stupid thing to say, isn't it? I mean, to not believe in abortion, that's not true. What he actually thinks it's wrong, But if you describe it as he doesn't believe in abortion, that sounds a bit arbitrary. It's a bit like, he happens to believe in God, he happens not to believe in abortion. That's just his personal opinions. There's no moral force to it. And that's why it's presented that way. Entirely deliberate.
Despite the hardship in the Delta, he doesn't think banning abortion will have a detrimental impact on women's lives.
I think there will be more children being given a chance at life. I don't think women's health care will be impacted. Maybe we shouldn't have sex outside of marriage, and then we wouldn't have to make those difficult decisions.
In many parts of the Bible Belt, abstinence is the entirety of the sex education on offer. When that fails, which it often does.
Now with this section, I always do bear in mind when you hear these things that you don't hear the question. So what someone's saying might be in response to a question that's quite different to the way it's been used in the final edited version. So we'll cut this interviewee some slack. But when he says given a chance of life, okay, I think he's trying to be positive, but I do think the clearer case is made by saying unborn children shouldn't be killed. I think that's clearer and more powerful. Contraception or abstinence could be described as taking away the chance of life being created. Abortion doesn't take away the chance of life. Abortion takes life, which is a very important difference. But as I say, who knows what else this man said in the interview, and who knows how that's been edited together. The point about sex within marriage, that's a very fair point. I mean, it wouldn't stop all abortions if there's no sex out of marriage, but it would prevent a lot of them. The BBC then talks about abstinence sex education. Now, sex education in Mississippi, there is quite a strong abstinence emphasis, but that doesn't mean that nothing else is talked about at all. But then they say when it fails. Now, when a teenager gets pregnant in Scotland, do the BBC say, oh look, the really vulgar, immoral, permissive sex education has failed and she's got pregnant? No. It's only abstinence-based sex education that can fail and result in pregnancy. If it's the sort of sex education the BBC thinks great and someone gets pregnant, well, that's just one of those things. That's just what happens, isn't it?
Crisis pregnancy centres, which women like Amanda often confuse with clinics, step in.
I run a pregnancy test and have them wait back here in private.
At Birthright CPC in Jackson, the walls are plastered with hundreds of pictures of babies.
Right, we'll meet the next villain now. This is the lady from the Crisis Pregnancy Centre. Now, the Crisis Pregnancy Centre provides support and help for women who are pregnant, maybe with unwanted pregnancies, and they try to allay their fears and say to them, yes, you can be a mother. What can we do to help? We can get through this together. You can keep your child, you can be a mother, and we think that's what's best for you. So they're pro-life and they're pro-mum. But as far as the BBC is concerned, they are evil and they need to be presented as such. But did you hear that description? On their walls, they have pictures of babies. I mean, isn't that appalling? It's a bit sick, isn't it? I mean, what sort of twisted psychopaths would confront pregnant women with pictures of babies? That's the way it sounded from the BBC. But certainly not an abortion clinic. I'd imagine they have pictures of trees or something. I don't know. They certainly would not have pictures of babies. But that's presented as though it's some sort of sinister trick. Whereas actually, it's presenting women who are having a baby with images of babies, which just seems like reality to me.
And so then I normally invite the client to sit on the sofa, and I sit across from them, and we discuss the results and what the plan is.
Monica Walton, the soon-to-be regional director, says the answer to any unwanted pregnancy and any hardship it might bring is counselling and prayer.
So the BBC claiming that the Crisis Pregnancy Centre are saying that the answer to any unwanted pregnancy and hardship is counselling and prayer. Now, a lot of people hear that and think, how stupid, how heartless, how out of touch with reality. They trick women with pictures of babies and then they fail to offer any practical support. But I heard that when they described that and I just thought, I don't believe it. I do not believe that that is the view of the Crisis Pregnancy Centre that they're talking about. If they actually had evidence that that's what they thought, they would have put in the quotation. We'd have heard someone saying that, but they didn't have that. So I just thought, right, that sounds to me like a BBC lie. So I engaged in some high-level investigative journalism using a very advanced technique, which is looking up the website and reading what it says. Clever, eh? So here it is, Birthright of Jackson. So that's the organisation. This is the very branch that they're talking about, that the woman was interviewed from. I tried to phone them up. I didn't get any response. But anyway, let's just look at what their website says. At Birthright, we understand the challenges related to unplanned pregnancies. Birthright is available to women for as long as they need us. We offer love, friendship and support to women who are pregnant or think they may be pregnant. Birthright is interdenominational, is not involved in any political activities or lobbying. Birthright's focus is on loving the mother, reminding her that there's hope, and ensuring that she is not alone. They sound a pretty nasty bunch, don't they? That's what the BBC thinks. Sounds great to me. Anyway, what services do they offer? Friendship, love and hope. They provide information about pregnancy, childbirth, adoption, prenatal care, community programs, parenting skills and childcare. They offer referrals for medical support, financial resources, housing, legal issues, social assistance and professional counselling. Free resources on offer, pregnancy tests, maternity and baby items, got a helpline and live chat as well. So the BBC report said that they only think you need prayer and counselling. And that is a lie. Downright lie. Now, when I say it's a lie, I use that carefully. I don't mean, they've taken a different perspective of it. It's a different interpretation. No, it's just a lie. It just is not true. Now, this same debate about crisis pregnancy centres, the same things happens in the UK. There are similar centres, there are similar sort of discussions. And they're hated by some people because they help mums to have babies instead of helping mums to get rid of babies. And that makes them nasty people, according to the BBC.
Have you ever sat in this room and thought, maybe having this baby is not the right choice for this girl?
Never. I think the world's a better place with the more children. And I understand that there are higher risks, but I also know that women who are in poverty do have healthy babies.
No thanks to you.
For Amanda, it's not that simple.
No thanks to you.
I mean, poor mums can be good mums. Surely that's a good thing to say. And if someone said the opposite, would that not be quite offensive, unjustified? But in this, it seems like saying that poor mums can be good mums, that sort of makes you a bad person. Then look at the way the BBC's engineered this, edited it together to humiliate and contradict the person from the Crisis Pregnancy Centre by allowing Amanda to come in straight away with, no thanks to you. So the person from the Crisis Pregnancy Centre is put in a place by the hero of the piece, Amanda, the mum who's angry that her sons are alive.
Because you don't know what we went through. You don't know that my abuser had to be escorted out of the hospital when I had Mega. What about the young woman who's dead? What about the kids who don't have a mom? What about the child who's being abused? What about the kids in the foster care system who are suffering? What about the kids who, there's no grocery store, there's no hospital, they don't have books at school? What about the parents who don't have jobs? So yes, we have these children, but we can't support them.
So as usual, the focus is on hard cases. Why not look at some ordinary cases? What about just the woman who had irresponsible casual sex? What about the woman who got pregnant just as a great career opportunity opened up? What about the woman who thought, oh, two's enough, I don't want to have all that hassle again? You don't hear about these cases, the ordinary cases that are the vast majority of abortions. They always focus on the very small proportion where there's some complicating factor. Now, the abuser pops up again here. He was there at the birth, apparently, so we're not really sure of the story there. But I've talked about that already. They said, what about the woman who is dead? I just don't understand. I do not understand how abortion's relevant to a woman who's dead. I don't understand. But anyway, it sounds dramatic and grave, doesn't it? What about kids who don't have a mum? Well, that's sad. There's adoption in that case. If this BBC report was about gay parenting and someone came out and said, it's really terrible for kids who don't have a mum, the BBC would like cut their microphone and they'd be off the programme. I mean, you would just not be allowed to say that not having a mum is a terrible thing. Because not having a mum is no problem at all if the discussion is same-sex parenting. But if it's abortion, then it seems like it's a perfectly fair point to make. Now, not having a mum, if the mum is incapable of bringing the child up for some reason, that's a very sad situation. But it doesn't justify ending the child's life. What about a child being abused? So a child being abused would be better off dead? Really? Foster care? Yeah, that can be tough. They can receive a lot of support, love and support, and need it as well. Can feel very valued through it. But Amanda thinks better off dead. No grocery store. In other words, a child's better off dead than being more than X miles from the nearest shop. I mean, no hospital? What do you mean no hospital? I mean, there are hospitals around. So in other words, if healthcare facilities need improving, maybe campaign to improve healthcare facilities rather than to kill unborn children. No books at school. Again, can you not become a school books campaigner? Be a fundraiser for school books rather than a baby killing campaigner? That would be my suggestion. The unemployed, she's saying, can't support having a baby. Well, maybe that's not the best time to have children. But if they find themselves with children on the way, then they can be offered support. People can rally around and try and give them what they need, just like those people seem to do at the Crisis Pregnancy Centre. Isn't that not the best answer? Now, these challenges, I do feel they're over-egging them somewhat. They're making the Mississippi Basin sound like Somalia. But as well as overplaying the challenges, they're rejecting the solutions. The people who are taking the practical steps to help people with these challenges are demonised in this report. But that's the BBC for you. So that's the BBC. How about the other media? Pretty similar as well. So they're extremely pro-choice. So you've got to bear in mind that if you're pro-choice as well, you listen to the media, you watch television, and you read the newspaper, and you're constantly massaged in your opinion. You're affirmed in it, drip, drip, drip. You're a good person. You're compassionate. Those pro-lifers, they're callous. They're bad people. They're not one of the good people like you. So I think it's good to bear in mind when you talk to someone about the pro-life issue, just bear in mind that that's what they will have been marinated in, possibly for years. And that can help to account for the way people respond to us as pro-lifers. Another effect of this media bias is that some people who are basically pro-life internalize this critique. And they tend to think, okay, I'm pro-life, but I'm one of the nice ones. I'm not one of those bad ones, those nasty ones that you see on the television and on the BBC and on the radio. They're the ones who do something. I'm the nice sort of pro-lifer who doesn't do anything, doesn't say anything, and doesn't even want to stop abortion. And again, that's a pretty sad state of affairs, a pretty confused state of mind to end up in. I mean, just with this sort of media bias, one of the first times media bias really struck me very powerfully, it must be, I was probably a teenager at the time, or early 20s or something. There's an episode of Casualty, which I think was on the BBC, a sort of hospital drama thing. And in one of the episodes, they had a pro-life vigil outside the hospital. And the whole story was engineered to turn people against this pro-life vigil. And towards the end, somehow or other, the vigil was just blocked a road or something. A car had to steer around it, and it ended up causing a car accident. And someone got run over and badly injured. And then one of the stars of the show, one of the heroes, went out and ranted at the pro-lifers and called them all sorts. The whole programme designed to ram home that point. Pro-lifers, bad people. And, the trends continued. Just one more example from this week from the BBC website as well. This is just a short one. They had a report on the pro-life district attorney in Mississippi, who's playing an important role. I won't go into details about the Roe versus Wade, the possible outlawing of abortion in a lot of states in America. So this is a report about her. And they decide to go into her background a little bit. They said her father had a big estate, and it was called Fitch Farms, and people would go and visit it. And they said they could stay in the former house of Confederate General and first Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, Nathan Bedford Forrest, which Mr. Fitch had brought and transported onto the property. In other words, this lawyer's father owned an estate that included a building that had previously been owned by, a founder of the Ku Klux Klan. Now, that's a pretty tenuous connection, isn't it? I mean, there's no suggestion that the father actually agreed with the Ku Klux Klan, had any sympathy for them at all. We don't know that at all. But even if he did, we're talking about his daughter in any case. But you see what the report's doing. Let's just get the words Ku Klux Klan in the report, and then we can just get just guilt by association. So sling some mud, some of it will stick. We just get those terms in the same article and people will just connect them in their head somehow. It then went on to say that this lawyer enjoyed her time at her father's estate. So Ku Klux Klan, she enjoyed it. That means she probably approved of it. She's tainted as well somehow. But there's no logic in it whatsoever. And it's so transparent what they're trying to do. But it's just routine from the BBC. So the pro-life cause has got plenty of enemies in Scotland. The BBC, the wider media, the Parliament, all the parties in it, the National Health Service, who perform abortions in Scotland, lots of so-called charities that effectively speak for the government. Most schools deliver a very pro-abortion message. Basically, the establishment is pro-abortion. And they've got the power, virtually all the power, but what they haven't got is the truth. But times are changing. Abortion is moving up the agenda worldwide, and it's moving up the agenda in Scotland. And we're going to do all that we can do to accelerate that process. But to help us doing that, do join the Scottish Family Party or become a regular donor via the link below. And thanks for watching.